And they will be doing another Wixo thing, except we're gonna do the another Wixo, but this is a um new kind of idea thing that I came up with. Now, it's not gonna be your average Wixo. It's going to be on a map that I just randomly made. I tried to draw some random lines and some random continents, but I accidentally made one look like a giant Portugal on accident, and some of them also look like modern stuff, and some of them are just straight lines. But sorry about that. But anyway, our first civilization will start over here, and I'm not going to show you the map, so you can probably see it down here in the corner, but who cares? You won't really know because you won't know where we are, but the red team will be the first to form. It's kind of just like a state. It's kind of just like an agreement that people made between each other to like, hey, this is like the average amount of stuff you have to pay for our wheat or whatever. Just like agreements between people. It doesn't really have a very functioning government, and it just sits here. The red team will begin to discover land over here, and they begin to think they're kind of on an island, which may be true. I don't actually know where they are. Um, but they claim down here, and then they discover large amounts of land, and they think they're not on an island. But then they find coast, and then they realize that they were wrong and that they're on an island. David, this is a very, you have a climate map too and a resource map. So this area, looking at the resource map, it has a lot of oil. Um, I guess. So this area has a lot of oil. In terms of climate, it mostly jungly, but has some desert. That's really all. But anyway, the red team will decide that life's just not working out. So let's just stop exploring and just take what we have and make our farm here. They start chopping down the rainforests for more farmland and just claim the world. However, some people over here aren't happy over here aren't happy with the new plan. So they decide that life has chosen them to be the discoverers of the world, and they break away. Blue team will form from this breakaway, and it will immediately begin expansion. Well, not really expansion, but discovery into these lands. They discovered that the entire time they were, in fact, on an island. However, some of the people see coasts over here, and so they begin to develop better boats that would be capable of sailing across that strait to go to the lands that their people are seeing. They quickly expand up to the top of this island and have established a pretty nice, discovery here in this area. That once they get those boats developed, they'll land across the coast of this new area and they'll discover an island. They'll use these boats to um go to considerable territories into the ocean, and they actually discover a new island too, which they use as a base for further exploration. The red team doesn't allow them to use their waters for exploring, so there's a lack of knowing there because they don't want to explore. They're like, it's not going to get better, so just take what you get. But they begin expanding in considerable circles around the island until they finally find more land, which leads to more land. But it's just they discover an archipelago, which is however, soon they land on something that seems a little bit bigger. They open further sea routes to it and begin to discover. In terms of resources, all this area, except for some of this newer stuff that they found, is just plain oil. It's just oil. In terms of climate, it's mostly jungle. They're just living in jungle habitat. However, a lot of the trees in the jungle are starting to disappear because of over logging and stuff like that. They quickly begin to discover more and more lands, and they meet up here, going down across the island and discovering nice territories. They go into these new territories and decide that it's time to start settling in some of this new stuff they've discovered instead of just claiming it. So the blue team goes on extreme conquest. They take all discovered territory, which really doesn't work. So we see a couple rebellions, I have to say, pop up. Woot. This yellow one, a rather large Lionian empire here will format, and a purple team that want to sail the seas, colonize, your classical European stereotype. Um, Resources, yeah, it's just the end of the oil. Yeah, oil isn't very useful in this time period, so, um, oot. uh My cat just landed on top of my leg. That's who I was talking to. They claim and they walk, and they know. They know where they are. Actually, they don't, because they don't know what the world map looks like. The purple team invents long-range ships, and they use these to head north in a wide arc. Then they discover that there isn't anything north. They head south. And when they discover that there isn't anything south, they head east. Yeah, this is east. And when they discover that there isn't anything east, they go west. There's this one guy who's like, hey guys, I saw land in the east. But then they're like, oh, you're lying. And so they just continue going west, in which they don't find anything. And then they all turn to the guy and is like, what did you say about land in the east? And he's like, oh, land in the east. And so they go back east and they discover the land he was talking about. And then they promote him to captain of the ship. And he says, okay, we're gonna colonize these lands. And then they're all like, okay, and they take it. Um, that is basically all they do. But they continue coastalizing up the lands and sailing out, hoping to discover more of the world. And yeah, this is where we're gonna leave off the episode. Sorry if it's short, and I will see you next time.